All right. Let's dive into this, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Feck by Mark Manson.
Oh yeah,
Have you read this one?
I have. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's quite the thought-provoking read, I think.
It is. It is. It's full of counterintuitive advice on happiness and success.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, I was pretty skeptical at first.
Right.
I mean, who doesn't want to be happy, right? But
Right.
the more I dug into it, I realized Manson's kind of onto something here.
Yeah.
He's not saying we should, like, embrace misery or anything, but rather he's challenging that constant pressure to be positive all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of people maybe get tripped up a little bit because they're like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
are you telling me I shouldn't want to be happy? But it's more nuanced than that. It's like,
Yeah.
you can't just will yourself to be happy all the time.
Right.
There's more to it.
Have you ever noticed that the harder you try to force happiness, the more elusive it becomes?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like chasing a butterfly, right?
Mhm.
The more you pursue it directly, the further it flits away.
Yeah.
And Manson actually has a name for this. He calls it the backwards law.
Okay.
And the idea is that our relentless pursuit of these positive experiences
Right.
can actually intensify our feelings of negativity.
Wow.
And he actually borrows this concept from the philosopher Alan Watts,
Oh, wow. Okay.
who had this really fascinating way of looking at it.
So constantly chasing happiness might be the wrong approach,
Yeah.
but doesn't that kind of leave us with, like, embracing misery?
Well, not misery exactly, but Manson does make a case for the value of suffering.
Okay.
Not just like enduring it,
Yeah.
but actually seeing it as a catalyst for growth.
Okay.
Like from an evolutionary perspective, pain serves a purpose.
Right, right.
It's a signal that something needs to change.
Okay.
Have you ever learned a valuable lesson without going through some kind of hardship?
Oh, absolutely not. No, it's always the mistakes,
Right.
the failures that we learn the most from, for sure.
Exactly. And Manson actually takes this a step further and suggests that maybe we should define success,
Okay.
not by what we enjoy,
Oh.
but by what pain we're willing to endure.
That's interesting.
It's definitely a different way of looking at achievement, isn't it?
It is. It's a challenge to conventional thinking, for sure.
Right.
But when I think about the people I truly admire,
Yeah.
the ones who are truly exceptional in their fields,
Mm-hmm.
they often seem driven by a deep sense of dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
They never settle.
Right.
They're always pushing themselves further.
Yeah. He actually gives this example. He says that truly exceptional people often have this unshakable belief that they're not that great,
Oh.
which drives them to constant improvement.
Huh.
It's almost like their self-doubt fuels their ambition.
That's fascinating.
It's pretty counterintuitive.
Yeah, it is. But it makes me wonder if
Wow.
we're not supposed to chase happiness
Right.
and we should embrace our struggles.
Mm-hmm.
How do we even know which struggles are worth embracing?
That's where our values come in.
Okay.
And Manson uses this really interesting analogy of an onion to describe self-awareness.
Okay.
The first layer is understanding our emotions.
Right.
The second is understanding why we feel those emotions.
Okay.
But the third layer, that core of the onion, that's where our values lie.
Okay, so I get the onion layers.
Yeah.
But how do we know if our values are good or bad?
Well, Manson actually has some specific criteria for that.
Okay.
He suggests that good values are reality-based.
Okay.
They're socially constructive, and they're immediate and controllable.
Okay.
On the flip side, bad values tend to be kind of superstitious,
Okay.
socially destructive,
Right.
and outside our immediate control.
So can you give me like a real life example of how different values might lead to different interpretations of the same situation?
Absolutely.
Because it's kind of hard to picture how this actually plays out. you know?
Totally. So let's say two people both get passed over for a promotion. Someone whose values revolve around stability and security might be devastated by that,
Right.
viewing it as a personal failure. But someone whose values center around growth and challenge might see it as an opportunity to expand their skills and explore new options.
That's really interesting.
Right. So it's the same situation, but
Yeah.
two completely different interpretations based on their values.
Well, our values act like a filter, basically.
Exactly.
Shaping how we see the world and how we react to these challenges.
Yeah,
That's really powerful.
it is. And once we understand our values, we can start to understand our metrics for success and failure.
Okay.
What standards are we holding ourselves to?
Right.
What truly matters to us?
And this kind of ties into another major point that Manson makes about accepting responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
He's not just talking about owning up to our mistakes,
Right.
but something much deeper.
Yeah. It's more like taking ownership of our lives, you say.
Absolutely.
It's recognizing that we have the power to choose how we respond to events, even those that are outside our control.
Yeah.
It's not about blaming ourselves or dwelling on guilt,
Right.
but rather recognizing our agency.
Mm-hmm.
We always have a choice in
Yeah.
how we react.
So it's less about feeling like a victim of circumstance
Exactly.
and more about becoming an active participant in our own lives.
Precisely.
Mm.
And that shift in perspective can be incredibly empowering.
I can imagine.
Yeah. It's really interesting how that sense of agency you were just talking about,
Yeah.
how that ties directly into another crucial point that Manson highlights.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the importance of letting go of these limiting beliefs.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
He even calls it the law of avoidance.
Okay.
It's where we tend to avoid things that threaten our sense of self.
Yeah, totally. I get
Yeah,
that. It's
yeah.
like we create these narratives about who we are and what we're capable of,
Right.
and then we cling to them for dear life, even when they're
Mhm.
no longer serving us.
Yeah, exactly. And those stories can become incredibly limiting, you know?
Yeah.
But Manson suggests that true freedom comes from letting go of those narratives,
Okay.
embracing uncertainty, and being open to the possibility that we might be wrong.
Oh, wow.
He even suggests asking ourselves some pretty powerful questions.
Like, what?
What if I'm wrong?
Oh, wow.
And would being wrong actually create a better problem than my current one?
Those are some tough questions.
They are.
But I can see how they would force us to challenge our assumptions
Yeah,
and open ourselves up to new perspectives.
totally. It reminds me of the time I was terrified to quit my stable but soul-crushing job to pursue freelance writing.
Oh, yeah.
The fear of failure was just paralyzing.
Right.
But asking myself, what if I succeed?
Yeah.
Helped me shift my perspective.
And that shift is so powerful.
It is.
Yeah, it allows us to move from a place of fear
Right.
to a place of possibility.
Exactly. And it ties in beautifully with Manson's emphasis on the importance of failure. He actually sees failure as a necessary ingredient for success.
Wait, embracing failure.
Yeah.
Isn't that counterintuitive?
It might seem that way at first, but think about it.
Hey.
Every successful person has experienced countless failures along the way.
That's true.
It's through those failures that we learn,
Mm-hmm.
we adapt, and ultimately grow.
Okay.
As Manson puts it, if someone is better than you at something, then it's likely because she has failed at it more than you have.
That's a great way to reframe our thinking about setbacks.
Yeah.
It's not about avoiding failure, but rather seeing it as a stepping stone on the path to success.
Exactly. And this leads us to another common struggle I think a lot of people face.
That's that.
Lack of motivation. We've all been there, right? Those times
Awful.
when you just can't seem to get started on something, even if you know it's important.
All the time. I
Yeah.
have a stack of unfinished projects that can attest to that.
Well, Manson has a solution for that too.
Oh, really? What's that?
He argues that action is actually the catalyst for motivation, instead of waiting for inspiration to strike.
Yeah.
He suggests we just start doing something, even if it's small.
So instead of waiting for the motivation to hit us,
Yeah.
we create our own motivation by taking action.
That's the idea.
That's interesting.
It's a feedback loop.
Okay.
Action leads to motivation, which leads to more action, and so on.
Okay.
Whether it's starting a new exercise routine, or writing a book, or tackling a challenging project at work,
Right.
the key is to just take that first step.
So it's about building momentum,
Mm-hmm.
even if it starts with something small.
Exactly.
Like cleaning off my desk
Yeah.
or outlining a chapter.
Exactly. And that can help overcome that initial inertia.
Yeah, for sure.
This next point from Manson, I think, is particularly thought-provoking.
Okay.
He suggests that our desire to avoid rejection at all costs can actually be a form of entitlement.
How so?
He argues that when we constantly seek validation and approval from others,
Yeah.
we're essentially saying that our needs and desires are more important than anyone else's. It's about finding a healthy balance between asserting our needs
Right.
and respecting the needs of others.
Okay, so it's not about becoming a doormat,
No, not at all.
but rather recognizing that rejection is a part of life
Exactly.
and being able to say no to others
Right.
and being able to accept no from them as well.
Totally. Have you ever found yourself avoiding conflict at the expense of your own needs?
Oh, yeah. All the time. And it never ends well.
It doesn't, does it?
Yeah.
But Manson argues that conflict, when approached constructively, can actually strengthen relationships.
Ah.
It allows us to clarify boundaries,
Yeah.
communicate our needs, and deepen our understanding of each other.
Okay, so in a way, rejection and conflict, when handled well,
Hmm.
can actually be opportunities for growth in our relationships.
Absolutely, they can. And it all ties into Manson's overall message of choosing what we give a fuck about.
Okay.
We have limited energy and attention,
Right.
so we need to be selective about where we direct them.
It's not about becoming apathetic, but about prioritizing the things that truly matter and letting go of the rest.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this brings us to perhaps the most profound and potentially unsettling theme in the book,
Okay.
confronting mortality.
Wow. Okay. Talk about a heavy topic.
Right.
But I have to say, Manson doesn't shy away from it at all.
Not one bit.
In fact, he seems to embrace it.
He does. He argues that contemplating our own mortality can actually be incredibly liberating.
Oh, wow.
It helps us to clarify our values, prioritize what's truly important, and appreciate the preciousness of life.
He even goes so far as to say, death is the light by which the shadow of all of life's meaning is measured.
Wow.
That's a powerful statement.
It is, and it can be a difficult concept to grapple with.
Yeah.
But Manson's point is that recognizing the finite nature of our time here can help us to live more fully and authentically in the present moment.
It's a reminder to focus on what truly matters,
Yeah.
to choose our struggles wisely, and to make the most of the time we have.
Exactly. It's about aligning our actions with our values and living a life that reflects what we truly care about.
Yeah, it's definitely a perspective shift to think of death as a motivator rather than something to fear.
Right.
But I see how it could help us shed the superficial and focus on what truly gives our lives meaning.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our time is precious
Hmm.
and choosing to spend it on things that align with our values and bring us a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed how, like a near-death experience or even a serious illness can suddenly clarify what's truly important?
Absolutely. It's like all the distractions fade away and you're left with this laser focus on what really matters.
Right.
It makes you wonder why we wait for those moments to prioritize our lives.
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe it takes a jolt like that to wake us up to the reality of our own mortality.
Right.
But the good news is we don't have to wait for a crisis to start living intentionally.
You're right. We have the power to choose that awareness right now. This deep dive has been a whirlwind of insights.
It has.
From the backwards law to embracing our struggles and confronting our mortality.
Yeah.
Manson's ideas really make you rethink your approach to happiness and success.
And what's so brilliant is how he takes these potentially heavy topics
Right.
and makes them relatable and even humorous.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't shy away from difficult truths,
Yeah.
but he delivers them in a way that's both insightful and engaging.
Yeah. He definitely has a knack for cutting through the BS.
He does.
So what does all this mean for us? How can we actually apply these ideas to our own lives?
Well, I think the key takeaway is that true happiness and fulfillment don't come from avoiding pain or chasing fleeting pleasures.
Right.
It's about choosing our struggles,
Right.
wisely taking responsibility for our choices, and living in alignment with our values, even when things get tough.
It's about giving fewer frecks about the things that don't truly matter
Mm-hmm.
and pouring our energy into the things that do.
Yeah,
It's about defining success on our own terms
exactly.
and not by society's standards.
And it's a continual process.
Yeah.
It's about asking ourselves those tough questions, challenging our assumptions, and being willing to let go of the stories we tell ourselves that are no longer serving us.
Right.
It's about embracing the messy, imperfect, and often unpredictable journey of life.
Well said. As we wrap up this deep dive into the subtle art of not giving a feck, I'm left with a final question for our listeners out there.
Okay.
If you could choose one struggle to embrace one good problem to dedicate your time and energy to, what would it be?
And how would that choice shape your definition of success and ultimately lead you to a more meaningful and fulfilling life?
We encourage you to check out Mark Manson's book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Feck,
Yeah, it's a great read.
and see how his counterintuitive wisdom might spark a transformation in your own life.
Remember, it's not about being indifferent.
Right.
It's about choosing your battles wisely and living a life that truly reflects what matters most to you.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.